We're good? Yes.
Okay. 1, 2. This mic is working?
Yep.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening as we immerse ourselves in a really important conversation. One that I know many of our scholars have been very vocal and actively engaged around, the conversation around cell phone usage in our schools. As a district, we've been very intentional about listening to not only our families, but our scholars who will be most impacted by our cell phone policy. So this evening, we have Norwalk ACTS, as well as Positive Direction, as two partners that have actively been working with us in having this really important conversation. And we have a beautiful panel here this evening that I think it would be great if everybody introduced themselves and the role that you play as before we get into the work. I don't know if you want to start.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ana Milena Moreno Lonergan, and I am the manager for the Social and Emotional Health Initiative with Norwalk ACTS. And thank you, Norwalk Public Schools, for inviting us to be here tonight.
I'm Ashlyn Seiler. I'm a senior at PTech Norwalk, and I am a student on the Superintendent's Leadership Council, and I am a community advocate with Norwalk ACTS.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Heslop. I'm the digital instructional coach at the Center for Global Studies High School.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Robin Gredinger. I'm a social worker in residence.
I'm Andrea Valdez. I'm a senior at Norwalk High School, and I'm really excited to be here.
I'm Jamie. I'm also a senior at Norwalk High, and I'm also excited to be here.
I'm Tom Doherty. I work for the Juvenile Review Board here in the building. I am the Victim Support Assistant.
Hi, Nick Jarema. I'm a parent at 2 students in Marvin Elementary School. I'm on the SGC, and I also have a background in digital product development and machine learning and AI.
Hi, everyone. Margaret Watt. I'm the Prevention Director at Positive Directions, and I work with NPS to conduct the biannual Norwalk Youth Survey.
Well, thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. And like I said before, I'm really excited about this evening. I think this is one of a few conversations we have scheduled before we present to the policy committee potential drafts of our cell phone policy. So I'm going to turn it over to the Norwalk ACTS team that they will lead this conversation this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Estrella. Before we get started, I just wanted to share that we are live streaming this on the Norwalk Public Schools YouTube channel, along with a Zoom webinar. And for those who are in need of translation services, they're more than welcome to join the Zoom format and request to be in the specific language room that they desire to be in. And so with that being said, we are going to have an incredible conversation this evening. And so I'm just going to provide a little bit of context of why we are here and what we're doing here today, and then you will hear from the rest of our panelists. And so again, we'd like to begin by thanking the public schools for inviting us to be a part of this important project, acting as a convener, supporter, and really highlighting the work of systems change and collective impact along with policy and advocacy. We are excited on this collaboration and building a social media and cell phone policy that emphasizes health and wellness, along with driven by data collected by young people. This initiative is created with the community for the community, ensuring that the experiences and needs of each student is what is guiding the development of this policy. The objective of this forum for tonight is to really inform the community about what Norwalk Public Schools is doing to develop a comprehensive policy around cell phone and social media use in schools. This will also highlight the process, showcasing what makes it unique compared to our surrounding communities. This includes our data collection process, which actively involves youth voices, which really enhances the civic engagement and fostering leadership and involvement in the student body. We will share valuable data and research on cell phone use and social media in schools utilizing our Norwalk Youth Survey. And to further enrich the conversation, we have experts on the panel, along with parents, to participate in this discussion, addressing the positive and negative effects of phones in social media and schools, at home, and in generally our mental health and well-being, as sharing their perspectives on what they would like to see in this policy being implemented. And lastly, most importantly, we will hear directly from our young people to gather their perspectives on the policy development process and their thoughts on the direction we are heading. Additionally, we will also present sample suggestions for the policy informed and given feedback by our student council and surveys. So with that being said, we invite parents and the wider community to stay engaged with us. As we continue to work together to build a balanced, thoughtful approach to technology use in school to develop healthy habits also. Again, we appreciate the Norwalk Public Schools innovative approach in supporting the health and wellness of their students while promoting the development of course, healthy technology habits. So really together, we can create this policy that reflects the needs and voices of everybody. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off to my first panelist, Dr. G, who is going to highlight some points on our mental health in general.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's important to note that there's so much current neuroscience research out there about our cell phone usage. We know now that anything over 2 hours has a lasting impact on our mood, our anxiety levels, creates issues with body dysmorphia and eating disorders, creates a decrease in feelings of happiness. There's a loss of sleep and concentration, as well as lower focus, lower levels of frustration tolerance. So we know that these devices are constantly creating dopamine feedbacks within our brain. So every time we get a text, an email, someone comments, we get a ding, and that's an immediate dopamine hit to the brain. It's really hard to create this situation in real life circumstances, whether that be in the classroom or with one-to-one interactions. And this was additionally reinforced in terms of our population becoming more isolated with their peers and becoming more socially motivated during COVID. A lot of people turned towards their devices and less communication interactions happened. We know that this is especially true for our kids. Our kids started to seek dopamine hits in ways where even when they're in social interactions one-on-one at a table together, they will be texting one another. There's actually a term for this now. It's called phubbing because it's happening so frequently. What I want to do is give you the most important research about the most important terms and then give the other panelists a good chance to talk about it. What's important to note about focus and concentration was that there was a study done in undergraduates where they had their students, one had their phone not even near them, another one had their phone on their desk. There was a decrease in concentration and focus just by having your phone out. And the research is showing us overall, there's a decrease in engagement when we're with people just by having our cell phones out. Another study was done that showed females, after 10 minutes of looking on social media, reported having negative moods about their own body image after only 10 minutes of viewing social media. We also know that our sleep is impacted by electronic use, that it takes us longer times to fall asleep. We have a decrease in our REM sleep. We have reduced amounts or delay in our melatonin that's happening to us, which in turn reduces our focus and concentration the next day and the ability to learn. We also know that there are some statistics around cyberbullying, saying that the cyberbullying victims are twice as likely to engage in self-harm and suicidal behavior. In addition to more information on self-harm, we know that youth communicate their thoughts about suicide and self-harm on social media. Oftentimes they're doing it for attention or for sympathy. Studies have found that 6 to 9% of American adolescents have engaged in this behavior. And surprisingly, more often found in boys than girls. There is a positive feedback loop that kids are getting from this because it is being romanticized and also normalized to self-harm, where kids are posting videos of them self-harming as well. What we do know is that there is a protective factor that helps counter all of these things, and that's our own one-on-one personal interactions. The more we can have those things, the less impact our cell phones will have on us.
Thank you, Dr. G. That was incredible. Love the touching on the dopamine piece, right? And how do we find that elsewhere? So I'm really excited to pass it over to our dear friend, Margaret, who will give us a lot of information on the youth survey data and data points regarding all of this. And so take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Robin. That was really a great introduction. I think when it comes to technology, we know there's both positives and negatives, but I think most of us as adults in the room didn't grow up with the level of technology, especially in our schooling years, and the impact that it has. So this is such an important conversation tonight. So I'm going to be sharing a few, just sort of 5 slides related to students' views on technology from the 2024 Norwalk Youth Survey that we conducted earlier this year. A little bit about the survey. This is the 4th survey cycle we've done. I run it through the public schools with funding from the Drug Free Communities Grant, which is a CDC grant that we get and that operates through, as you can see on the slide, the Norwalk Partnership. So I do have to mention that I hope everyone's familiar with the Norwalk Partnership. It is a community coalition with up to 50 agencies and parents and youth, all kinds of folks from across the city working together to prevent substance misuse and promote mental wellness in our youth. And so this data that we collect every other year through that project, through that grant, has informed work in the schools, in the community. It's informed grants. It's led to our Teen Nights Out initiative, the big Norwalk for Mental Health initiative coming up, support groups, new resources in the schools, many good things. I would say that the survey that we did in 21, which was right during COVID, highlighted so hugely the mental health and needs and the suicidal ideation of our students that has been the focus for a number of years. And we've gotten those numbers way down. I'm not going to be showing those numbers tonight, but all the inputs from our community, the resources here in the school system, in the district, have really decreased the mental health issues. And then there are the remaining issues, right? So now we get to address other things. But I will say technology, as Robin highlighted, affects mental health. So I just wanted you all to know there's much more data than this. I'm now going to just focus on what kids told us about technology. So Ralph, if you don't mind hitting the next slide. These are the areas that we asked students about in this year's survey. Most of the questions are mental health, risky behaviors, substance use, lifestyle. We did ask them about these factors, which I'll show you next. Sorry. So to start, the questions were all about either cell phone use or social media, right? So they're not the same, but they're related. What you can see here is that we surveyed about 4,000 students. They're all in grades 7 through 12. 4,000 students is 70% of the student population. And that means you can extrapolate these numbers. It's incredibly robust. If we had surveyed 100% of the students, we wouldn't expect to find different answers. What you see here is essentially all the students have their own smartphone and over 90% have a social media account. They tended, on average, they got their first smartphone at age 10 and a half, and they got their first social media account at 11 and a half. Students, what's the official age kids are supposed to get a social media account? Do you all know?
13.
Correct. But we know this as parents, right? Kids get their, you just click and tell Instagram that you're over age 13. So they have it earlier than would be ideal. Next. This is how much time they spend on social media. So let's look at the pie chart on the left first. How many hours a day did students say that they are spending on social media? You do have 10% who say they're not on social media. You also have 70%, the vast majority, who are on social media from 1 to 4 hours a day. That's a pretty big range. And then you can actually see, I have to look at my phone because even with my glasses, the orange, no, I can't see it. What is that number? 17%? 13%. Thank you. The people who don't have old eyes. Those are students who say they're spending 5 to 7 hours a day on social media. So just reflecting back on what Dr. Gredinger was saying about the impact after just 10 minutes, that's an issue, right? And then some students who are spending more time even than that. The other piece of it to think about is even if they're just having the most positive relationship with their social media possible, that amount of time is time they're not doing something else. They're not exercising, they're not socializing, they're not learning a skill, they're not volunteering, they're not doing all those good things. Now let's look at the other pie. That's how much time did kids report spending on video gaming. And here there's a lot more students who don't engage in it at all, about a third of them. But you can see about half of them, or just over, spend 1 to 4 hours a day. And some students are still spending even more hours than that on video gaming. These pie charts are not mutually exclusive. You could potentially have some student who's spending, 4 hours a day on social media and another 4 hours a day gaming. So those are the challenges for you all, and also for your parents, especially when we're at work and we're like, what's my kid doing at home, right? And if you can click one more time, at the bottom, each little blue box is telling you about differences we see in the data. So what we did see is differences between middle school and high school students, where more high school students spend more time on social media every day than middle school. But 59% of middle schoolers spend 1 to 4 hours a day gaming, and 50% of high school. So as they get older, more likely to spend time on social, less likely to spend time gaming. Next. Now, this is a question about how did they feel that social media impacts them. The two top bars are positives. That's why they're green. So 57% of students said social media makes them feel more connected with others, which makes sense because you are potentially like hanging out, talking to your friends. And 51%, so just over half, said it makes them feel better about themselves. So those are positives, but it's still basically half of the students, right, having the positives. The other impacts you see here are negative, having a hard time stopping, hearing or seeing things their parents would disapprove of, feeling left out or excluded. So actually, I think that one's interesting. Feeling more connected with others, just over half. Feeling left out or excluded, a quarter. Leaving another quarter maybe just sort of in the middle. Feeling worse about yourself, a quarter. Getting into a fight, choosing not to spend time with friends, and feeling unsafe because of something someone said on social media. If you can click one more time, please. There are some significant differences. Female students were much more likely than males to report some of those negative factors, feeling excluded, worse about themselves, seeing something inappropriate, and having a hard time stopping their social media. Youth identifying as LGBTQ felt more connected, which was a positive, and that also relates to factors in school and whether they feel marginalized or not. But then they also had all the negative effects you see, more likely to get into fights, feel excluded, feel worse, feel unsafe, and see inappropriate things. Now, the next slide is how did they feel video gaming impacted them? Again, just over half, 51% felt more connected with others. Also, 39%, which is just over a third, felt that they got, like some credibility for playing well, right? So it's kind of a self-esteem boost, like friends think they're cool if they play well. And then the negative impacts, or the ones that I would see as negative, you've got about a third of students saying they were purchasing loot boxes or skins. So for the parents who don't know what that's all about, this is built into video gaming, right? And it's where you're kind of competing, and sometimes you're actually gambling something of value to you in the game. Sometimes you're gambling actual money to level up, to buy something, to purchase something. It actually is a predisposition to gambling behavior. It can be addictive. It's Problem Gambling Awareness Month, so I wanted to highlight that. And other issues that you see here are about a third of students saying they didn't finish their homework because of their video gaming. They didn't get enough sleep. Again, seeing things that are inappropriate, getting into fights. About 10% of students were reporting the final group of issues that are problematic, like getting asked personal information by a stranger, getting threatened, having a hard time stopping, other people telling them they're concerned about how much time they spend gaming. That's kind of a sign of potential real problem, and avoiding spending time with friends. If you click one more time, you're going to see males were more likely than females to report pretty much all of these factors. Next. 2 more slides. Now, these were questions to students about how did they feel about the impact of cell phone use, not just on them, but at school. So when they see cell phones used at school, and we asked them about 4 things that were potentially negatives of using cell phones at school. Not like, again, not you all, just like not you individually, but as a as a group. So the four things we asked about, do you think cell phones have a negative impact on mental health? Are a distraction at school? Do they reduce how much students socialize? And do they interfere with completing schoolwork while at school? The green, the top bars for all of these are students agreeing these are negative effects of cell phones at school. So you can see almost basically half said negative effect on mental health. About a third said they are a distraction, they do reduce socialization, they do interfere with our schoolwork. So less than half thought that those things, I guess look at the green and the yellow and not just the orange, right? So we really have, you know, like a good number of students reporting these are negative effects, and also an important number of people in the middle who can't agree. They're like, you know, yes, I'm not sure, maybe. Overall, there's, I wouldn't say, except for the 52% of students who said that, who disagreed, cell phones don't interfere with completing schoolwork. I think the takeaway is the majority of students would either agree or are unsure that these are problems. So they're problem areas. The next final slide is, what about your personal experiences with cell phone use? So 58% of youth, 7th through 12th grade in Norwalk, said they've tried to cut back on their cell phone use, which implies they feel they're using too much, right? And another 11% maybe. 45% said that when they do limit their use, they feel that they are more productive. And finally, 38% said that their cell phone use has reduced how much sleep they get at night. So I would say overall, to wrap up the data from the youth survey, students are showing that there really are negative impacts, even though there are some positive like connectedness factors. But I think going back to what you said, Robin, if they're using it for a small period of time, they can get the connectedness factors and maybe avoid the negative. What we see is there's a lot of students using for a lot of time.
Yeah.
So thank you for I know it was kind of long, but I think it's really important to have this data from reflecting really all of our students. Thank you.
No, thank you, Margaret. And for those watching, where can we find those results?
Dr. Stray and I had talked about potentially putting them on the public school website. You can also email me separately.
Yeah. So
Some of the data is available on the website at the norwalkpartnership.org, not all for other reasons.
perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a process. Everything's a process. So actually, before I throw it up to Tom over there, I wanted to kind of take Ashlyn, Andrea, and Jamie and see if you have any thoughts or reflections on the data and the facts that Dr. G just said, Margaret just mentioned about the survey along and the data results, and if you can align or say anything about this.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, when we went through the data and it showed that there was a difference. The younger they are, the more they're gaming, and the older they are, the more they're using social media. And there was, kind of an overlap of like, the high school students were more aware of like, there are negative effects to what I'm doing. And that's something I noticed when I looked at the data too. And I think that that's because there's a learning curve to social media and gaming use. When I was in middle school, I probably would have answered that I was arguing online and all of those negative answers. But when I took the survey, I didn't really answer that way. So maybe in this policy, there could be some kind of education at a younger age on like how to properly use social media and cell phones, because I didn't get an education on how to properly use that until this year. So I think that's something to start implementing younger, now that we know this data shows that that's a problem at a younger age.
Can you just say, when you say you got education this year, you self-educated or?
We had a unit in health class on social media and cell phone use, and I've never had that unit in prior years, and I've taken health 6th grade to now.
Interesting.
I'm just curious, can you tell us the one thing that you really took away from that unit around it that like stuck with you around how cell phones may impact you?
Yeah, we did like an exercise where we did look at similar data where it's like women are more likely to have negative self-esteem and all of those kinds of effects. And that was something I took away. And we ended the class with like a personal challenge, and you could decide, and a lot of students decided to limit their social media and cell phone use to try and improve their lives. I didn't get to see everybody's projects, but I heard that all of them came out with great results.
I agree. If I could see my results from middle school and from high school, there would definitely be a difference.
Yeah, I completely agree too.
Yeah.
I feel like also from the results, the people that said that there wasn't any negative like effects to it or like nothing, I believe that they're lying because there is. And you can see it with how social they are, how they interact with people.
Absolutely. That really goes back to what you're talking about the brain development, the social skills, and how that can really hinder that. So I'm really happy that you guys at such a young age are already aware and mindful of this. And so I'm going to pass it over to Tom. We would love to hear your role, what you do for our community, our city, and just to hear a little bit of background on this topic specifically, what you see and ways to be preventative at home.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Doherty. I work for the Juvenile Review Board here for the city. And for those of you that don't know, the Juvenile Review Board is a court diversionary option that most cities in Connecticut offer. When kids get arrested, it's either up to the officer's discretion or the court's discretion that they can be sent to our office. And through our office, they can get their arrest completely expunged. It's another step from the normal juvenile process, which just has the record sealed. As of right now, we have about 90 cases open, and of those 90 cases, about a dozen of those directly involve technology, whether that be through what we call cyberbullying or sexting. There are a handful of other cases that are tangentially related, as our other experts pointed out, arguments over text or over online chat erupt into physical fights at school. So that's most of what we're seeing in terms of technological cases from our office. And again, we get the best of the arrests. So that's the tamest of the worst case scenario. So that's most of what we're seeing in our office. Preventative measures, mostly I can think of limiting Wi-Fi access, and that's at school. But in terms of what we're doing here, that's as much as we're seeing.
No, thank you so much. I had another question, but it just popped out of my head, so I'll get it to you.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you mentioned sexting, and that's
Yes,
something,
that's where I
you
was
know,
going.
is that what, okay, go ahead then.
No, can you describe a little bit what that means and kind of the more intense term of what that really is? It's really child pornography.
Right, exactly. So the technical term, the charge of what these kids are being charged with is possessing and transmitting child pornography, which is very serious in and of itself. And some of it is kids just sending pictures back and forth, but other times it's kids taking pictures of other kids non-consensually in the locker rooms, which we obviously take very seriously. And we're trying to find a way to make sure this doesn't happen ever again. We certainly work with the kids, tell them how serious this is, and obviously if it ever happens again, they go straight to court. But it still has become a struggle in terms of preventative measures.
Absolutely.
That stuff's out there forever.
Right.
I do have one other piece of data related to that. So in the survey, we only asked high schoolers about anything related to sexual behaviors, but 9% of our high schoolers said they had engaged in sexting. They reported that. So that's 1 out of every 10 kids. But also 29% said they had received a sext. So, you know, maybe like they didn't want to, but they got it. That's a lot of kids that, you know.
Well, and then on the other end, if you are the victim of having your photo exposed, the impact that would have on your mental health and your drive to move forward and your interactions with your peers.
Yeah,
as well.
I remember the survey 2 years ago, we did ask about sexting in the middle schools, and going back to what the students said tonight about middle schools being maybe less ready to handle this, there was a lot more sexting than anybody wanted to think in middle school versus high school. And so there, I think you all have raised a good point about like what age can people handle things? When are they ready developmentally? And I think the fact that, the social media companies are saying you're supposed to be 13 and our students are already engaging in social media before that age is its own problem. So.
No, thank you for that. And I want to go back to what you talked about, romanticizing this stuff, normalizing this stuff. Unfortunately, social media is influencing young people's behavior. So we see one person doing it, we think it's the cool thing to do, right? So really highlighting that, having those conversations at home, within the family dynamic on how to be safe, pretty much, right? Thank you guys for that. I'm going to pass it over. I'm really excited to hear from Ms. Heslop, who is the digital instructional coach at Center for Global Studies. And I'm really excited to hear about her because I think her role is extremely important and really important for our parents and community members to know that this is happening.
So hello, once again, my name is Caitlin Heslop. I'm the digital instructional coach at the Center for Global Studies High School. So in my role as a digital instructional coach, there are many hats that I wear. I help teachers with integrating technology into their lessons and into their personal lives. I help them with preparing presentations on our smart TVs, as well as organizing Google Classroom. I also develop lessons for both staff and students surrounding digital citizenship, which focuses on using technology safely, responsibly, and respectfully. So this kind of touches back on that educational piece that we were talking about educating students earlier or as early as possible on what social media looks like and what technology looks like and how to use it safely. The topics can range from understanding what a digital footprint looks like, and that if things are posted, like you said, they're out there forever, you cannot take them back. And also understanding how to assess whether a source is reliable, if they're looking at something that is truthful or not, if they're accessing like an AI source, is what AI is pushing, is this a correct answer, and how to figure out where to get the correct answer if it's not. In terms of our cell phone use, a lot of the things that we kind of work on as a school is keeping the cell phones away when possible. So we have phone pouches for teachers for them to have their students put their phones in during lessons. But even sometimes there are lessons that require cell phone use, technology use for whatever reason. And there have been issues in the past with students participating in conversations across social media, not necessarily in the classroom, but outside of a classroom space. And typically that results in a conversation with our social worker or our principal to conduct a restorative conversation between whatever students were participating in whatever behavior offline, because it typically trickles into in-school discussions as well. And I think one of the main things that I also have touched on with a few teachers this year is the use of an application called ClassWise, which allows for you to monitor what students are doing on their screens as they're working. So because we have the VILS program at CGS as well, across the high schools, we have the VILS program, which provides students computers as well. These computers, because they are district-wide, have the application preloaded. So if students are working on their computers, the teacher can open up ClassWise to see what students are working on. They can open and close tabs on student devices, or if they're doing something that they shouldn't be, this teacher can also notice what's happening and then go have a conversation with that student. ClassWise has been used as an accountability measure in some classes where teachers have mentioned, I have students where we're doing independent work time or group work time, and I see they're on Netflix or they're on YouTube, or they're playing some sort of video game. How do they get access to a video game? And so I think one of those main things that a lot of teachers have really benefited from is that ability to not only monitor from one set location, but also to be able to have those conversations privately with students, because sometimes it can be embarrassing to be called out in front of the entire class saying, oh, you weren't on task. So that privacy piece is also very large. Thank you.
No, thank you. Definitely something new that I learned, and great for the parents and families at home to know about also. Now the ClassWise app, is that AI or is that just a program?
It's a program. So on the district ClassLink page, all the teachers have access to it. It links with the Google Classroom, which at CGS predominantly most of our teachers use Google Classroom. So if they have a class and all of the students are aligned to that class, they can connect that with their ClassWise. And when students are working during class time, they can see all of their screens lined up, and they can mute them, or they can all broadcast one tab, open specific tabs, close specific tabs, and kind of see live what students are working on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that very informative education piece that, I wasn't aware of either myself. And so I'm excited to turn it over to our parent that's here on the panel, one of the most important people along with our young people to be on this panel. Nick, we want to hear about your credentials. What is it that you do? I know you have little ones in our school system, and just share your thoughts about this process of developing this policy, along with what would you like to share to parents at home and how we can be proactive about this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for being here too. So my name is Nick Jarema. I'm a parent of a first grader and second grader at Marvin Elementary School, and I'm also on the SGC. When we first started this, I think probably about 2 or 3 years ago, one of the ways I first got involved was as an SGC, were engaged and trying to figure out what's the best thing we should do as a body for the school. One of the things that we observed was there was effectively middle school problems that were happening in elementary school. There were things that were happening that shouldn't. And so this started the conversation on why could this be happening? And as we discussed this, and there were, if anybody's read the book, The Anxious Generation, which really resonated with us as a body and things that kind of we were seeing, that was where we started the conversation around this. And so as a parent, one of the things, I believe it was you that said, ways that we can do this earlier. I think as we were looking at trying to isolate things that we could do, we were looking at cell phone policies. And I think one of the things that we observed is it wasn't one size fits all. So my background is in product. And so right now I work in a large financial institution that is essentially lead people analytics. So what that means is it's the analytics function within HR. So my job is to look at and understand the trends that we're seeing in our workforce. And I also have a background in developing digital products. And so I'm very familiar with how products are built to hook people, and also how machine learning algorithms are a mechanism to help that. And so I'm very, very aware of how those work. And so kind of looking at pieces of what we were seeing in our workforce, how products are built, and some of these other trends, it was kind of, it sort of concerned me as a parent. So I wanted to get engaged on both being a good parent. And I think when I was a kid, I was very sneaky. And so like, I'm sure I'm going to get some of that from my kids, but I felt like my parents didn't get it. And for me, having a background in technology, I want to be perceived by my kids and engage with them in a way that I feel like they think I get it and I can understand. So part of this for me is, I'd love to hear from you all on, how you would want to see your parents engage with you. And so that's kind of a little bit about my background and what brought me here. I touched a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing in our workforce, like some of the things that we sort of saw are in around 2021, 2022, we've started seeing Gen Z enter at least our workforce. So every workforce is different. We have about 80,000 people at our company, so relatively big size. Gen Z started coming into the workforce around that time. Every year since then, it effectively doubled. So right now, about 8% of our workforce is Gen Z. And so this is really the first time, at least in our company, where we have 5 generations in our workforce. And that to us is very big. So we have a large proportion of people who have been there for a really long time. We have a large proportion of people who are sort of new. It's their first job. They're new in the workforce, and they've grown up in a very different environment. Externally, we're sort of at this point where we have a very different view of the truth, depending on which news source that you want. And that's fed into, there's a heavy connection on how people find their news in social media, and using social media as a way to find the news. And a lot of times what you see in the headline isn't always what's in the article, and it's very slanted depending on what you are. And so, but a lot of times people, when it's served up on social media, they don't go into that depth, and then that ends up causing, issues. And so that's kind of going back to looking at product. One of the things that I look at as the things that hook people, or the way that you try to drive adoption to a product, is through product analytics. And so every time when we were talking about a digital footprint, these are all things that developers care very deeply about, on making sure that they serve you actions that hook you, that drive the next behavior, and that they're always constantly looking at that. And so, so that's just a little bit about my background and what brought me there.
And in terms of this policy, and I love what you just said, about how the products are being developed to grab the attention, right? Even with the vapes, the everything, you know, there's a lot of psychology and marketing behind that, right? So the nice pretty color, this and that, and to the point about the credentials, right? We want to learn where to get our sources from, where we're reading accurate information, so we're not spreading what we call fake news and things like that. So I wanted to pick your brain lastly, Nick, as a parent, what would you like to see in this policy for when your little ones get to middle school, or all of our little ones getting to middle school and high school, learning how to navigate that?
Yeah, I think I would personally like to see more of a needs-based approach. I don't think it's a one size fits all. And so when I, as a product person, when I look at who has similar needs, there's different lenses you can look at it from. I think students versus parents versus teachers have drastically different needs. But also I think the when on the elementary school needs are very different than the middle school needs versus the high school needs, because I think when you engage with this is different. As a technologist, I think that there's a lot of great things to come from technology, but it's not all of it and all at once and as early as possible. And so as a parent, as a parent of elementary school age children, I'm more concerned on understanding what's it going to be like? How should I start engaging my kids? I talk to them about digital literacy and not giving away passwords and sharing information and information being like a puzzle piece that people always want to take and piece together and use against you. So for me, it's more preparation. I would imagine that in middle school, it's a little bit more of like how you actively are maybe being a coach to your kid. I don't know. I think that's one of the things I want to learn from this group. But I think broadly looking at how we can group similar needs and not sort of take a blanket approach on not everything is allowed here or not for everybody. I think where we can sort of find common needs across different groups, that would be success for me.
Wonderful. And I'm actually want to hear from our young people in terms of how would you encourage your parents to get involved in this? You may have younger siblings, younger family members. How would you encourage your parents to be involved and kind of support this learning healthy technology habits at home?
I would say that the parents first also have to be aware of the technology use in their house. I remember when I was younger, my parents would tell me like, oh, don't believe everything you see on the internet. And now the internet's gotten so advanced that I sometimes have to remind my parents not to. Well, they'll talk to me about it when I get home because they're watching. But sometimes I have to remind them that not everything they see on the internet is true, because I've grown up like hearing that over and over again, and I've grown up with technology. I've learned how to notice that, and my parents, they didn't learn how to notice the like real and fake parts of the internet. I used to be taught it in classes. My parents didn't have that. So sometimes I have to be like, hey, you just saw this on social media. It's probably not true. So before you can like teach your kids how to be safe with technology, you yourself also have to know how to be safe with technology. I think that also going back to starting this education piece younger, I liked that you were explaining to your kids, like it's like a puzzle piece where people are trying to understand it and figure stuff out. It's definitely something to start at home, because obviously my generation notices it. Children are getting phones and technology at a younger age. So teaching them how to even use the basics, like if they get an iPhone, you can manage what apps they download and how much time they spend on their phone through your own phone. You can also teach them that, oh, you can set like an alarm and it'll tell you when bedtime is every night, or you can they can set their own screen times on apps and start having them manage their own screen time safely. Obviously with your oversight. I think that would be a good way. And then once this policy is in place, if you can start implementing pieces of it in your own home, definitely with screen time and healthy use.
You guys want to add anything? Well, I agree with you, especially when it comes to the screen time. I think that parents should give you like 4 hours of your phone, and you can pick you can manage your hours, and then at a certain time, like 9:30, your phone turns off, and that's it. I feel like that's a really good method for us to,
Yeah, and build a structured habit.
yeah.
And Jen?
Well, I engage with my mom a lot, so like we talk and then we show each other TikTok and stuff. So one parent, my mom, like she loves TikTok. My dad is like no social media. He just watches the news.
Yeah.
So it's like I show him a TikTok, or if I show him something, he won't even laugh at it or anything. He's not that type of person, but my mom will. So I think like, engaging with your kid, talking about like what's right and what's wrong, what to watch, what not to watch would actually help a lot.
I love that, incredible. And I actually, now that we're talking about our young people really quick, before I pass it off to Ashley to wrap us up with our project that our student council group, we would like to hear from our young people, what do you guys see your teachers doing to implement healthy phone habits? I know there's multiple examples. Teachers have different approaches to this. So we'd love to hear a little bit about what your teachers do in terms of putting phones away, et cetera, and navigating how to get there.
Well, some of my teachers have these papers that are like, they have points in them.
Okay.
So if you put your phone away, they will give you points, which is like really easy, but some kids choose not to get points and just keep their phone, which is dumb. I don't,
Free credit.
it makes no sense, yeah.
I love that.
I think the best method, I've seen, you were talking about the cell phone pouches. Honestly, I know a lot of classrooms have them, or they have lockers that you get like a key to, and you get to keep the key and then you unlock your locker when you need your phone. Honestly, I haven't seen either the lockers or the cell phone pouches really being utilized, and I haven't heard a lot of feedback that they are, at least at P-Tech and Norwalk High. What I have seen be useful with the cell phone pouches is I have this one teacher where at the beginning of class, we put our phones away in the pouches, and then about halfway through class, he gives us like a 10-15 minute break where we get to use our phones, and then we put them back, because 90 minutes is a lot of time to spend on anything. It's a lot of time to just sit at your computer and watch videos or do an assignment or listen to your teacher lecture. It's a long time. Even an adult with a fully developed brain can't pay attention for that long. It's just not gonna happen. So I think that breaking it up and knowing like, once you get through half of class, you get your phone, and then you just have to get through a second half, and then you also get your phone. I thought that was very productive and a good way to utilize the cell phone pouches.
Ashlyn, I have a question about that. So, because I hear that and I think, or that 5 minutes could be to let you all talk to each other.
Yeah,
How would that feel instead?
it's up to the students. He just gives us like a 10-15 minute break, and
So you can
he's
do
like,
whatever you want.
it's like, you can stay at your desk and like talk to your friends, or you can go grab your phone and spend your 10-15 minutes on that. It's kind of up to the student. He's not gonna make you get up in that time and take your phone out and use it. He's going to let you do whatever you do, whatever that time.
And do most kids get the phone probably? Or do
Actually,
they
no, a
have-
lot of
no?
them, like go for a walk or use a bathroom, go to the vending machine,
Okay.
or just stay in their seats. I haven't seen many people, get up and get their phones.
Thank you.
No, thank you for that. That was actually one of the questions from our audience, and they wanted to really know what are teachers doing to limit cell phone use. So that's amazing. Thank you for all that. And so wrapping up to our grand finale here, I'm really happy to have Ashlyn here. She is a very dedicated young scholar who will be very successful in the political field, and we'll be cheering her on her whole way. So Ashlyn was part of the Student Government Council data collection process. And so I'm going to pass it over to Ashlyn to talk about that process, what questions were asked, what feedback was brought, and what students themselves would like to see in this policy for the future.
So, for this data collection, what we did was, Norwalk ACTS teams, we got together and we made a list of questions, and then we grouped the ones together that we thought were similar. So the questions that we came up with were, what are the positive and negative effects of cell phone use, and how do you see cell phones affecting the well-being of students? What is the purpose of students using their cell phones in class? What can be done to encourage healthy phone habits and personal boundaries with technology to prevent burnout? And how do we develop a healthy relationship with technology? And what would students like to see in this policy? What steps should be taken while supporting and maintaining a focus on students' mental health and productivity? We had posters around the student council meetings where students went and they put sticky notes up with their thoughts. So some takeaways from that are for positive and negative effects of cell phone use. Students consistently responded saying that they think social media is beneficial to them because it allows them to communicate either or get information either from the news, talk to their friends, talk to their family. But also students had concerns over it being a distraction, people spreading rumors on social media, misinformation, and we are aware of the mental health problems that it can cause us. What do students use their cell phones for? Most of the students were using their phones for communication or school-related work, and some students, as I said, it's a lot of time to spend in a 90-minute class just paying attention to a lecture. So some students were using their phones for entertainment purposes on TikTok or social media. Students overwhelmingly wanted to create a positive relationship with technology and have that encouraged by school staff, either that being breaks in class, like I mentioned, teaching, they wanted to learn how to utilize technology for good, and they wanted also possibly for phone use to be seen as a reward for completed work. One comment that I really took away when I was reading through the student responses was somebody said, I want to see healthy phone use, but not limiting phone use. So what that means to me is it's about being taught how to use your phone in a safe and healthy way and not have it be seen as like an enemy. It's a tool to use for communication. It's a tool to use for education. And I thought that was really important, and that kind of brought things full circle.
That's incredible. Thank you. And I would say I was really happy to be a part of that experience. And so thank you for inviting me into. Did you want to say that?
I did. So I have some thoughts just as we're all talking, and what I'm hearing is that what we know about the brain, the dopamine hits, and how we're being targeted. It's almost as if, we know this is an addiction at some point, right? With addiction around drugs or alcohol, we talk to kids about that at an early age. We have a lot of prevention programs around about that, but also a harm reduction model. And how do we do it in a safe way? And I'm almost thinking it's more like an addict who's addicted to food, right? We need food every day to fuel our body. And when we work with people who have concerns with overeating with food, we're looking at their habits and the things that they do on a daily basis. So what type of protective factors are we putting in to help our kids kind of have good cell phone nutrition, right? So teaching them boundaries around cell phones, modeling those boundaries. So much of what we do when we learn is from our parents, right? And then we repeat that behavior. So if we have concerns, be the first to show us how to do that. Also increasing our ability to get outside. We know that that's such a big release for our kids and for us. And so just kind of thinking about going back to what Nick said too, I really look at this as a continuum where we need to kind of start at an earlier age, but around safety and as we get older in terms of their own interactions and perspective taking and the trouble that they can get themselves into. So just my thoughts.
I love that. We one of the things that you mentioned prevention, that was kind of one of the things that as we talked as an SGC about, we started with, okay, well, we could do these things, and it kept coming back to, okay, what problem are we really trying to solve for this group? And we kept going back to this lens on, is this prevention or is this intervention? And at the elementary school, it was more about, okay, where we see our role as looking at prevention of this. And so that was just kind of, I love how you mentioned that, because that was one of the lenses we kept going back and forth on, which problem are we trying to solve, and are we capable of solving in this board for this group of people?
I love that.
Good.
There was something you said, there were two things you said, Robin. Hopefully I'll remember one of them that I wanted to respond to, but I think along the lines of the prevention. And I know one of the things that you said was you mentioned role modeling, and it's worth just coming back to the fact that everything we've talked about here tonight, and something you said, Ashlyn, too, it's like, these are all problems that we have as adults too, right? We all have a hard time turning off our phone. We all hear that beep, like, oh, a text came in. You're like, oh, I was really involved in a discussion with my family, but do I need to see what that said? And so these things are really addictive, and we need to know how to manage them. And, but I think, like, from the prevention lens, as the director of prevention of the Behavioral Health Agency, I mean, there's a big part of me that's like, a lot of what we're talking about, and all the students here are all talking about high school level, right? And I really wonder if we wouldn't be creating healthier kids if they just didn't have access to this until the high school age, right? And so we've talked about the fact that social media is supposed to be at age 13. I believe there's research now saying that really everyone would be better off if they didn't start until age 16, which is clearly high school. And social media, kids, you're not necessarily on social media that much in school. So when we're talking about school policies, we're really talking about how are people access to cell phones and use of cell phones. And, I really wonder how much middle schoolers, like, what would it be like if middle schoolers didn't have cell phones? Wouldn't they be developing more in school? Wouldn't they be developing more social skills? Because as behavioral health folks, we see a lot of impact coming out of COVID, where kids didn't have that opportunity in their middle school years, or depending how old you all are now, to develop really good social skills. And then if you're feeling awkward about your social skills, but you can hide behind a phone, when are you going to develop those social skills, right? So I just wonder when you think about middle school students, I mean, if you didn't have a phone at all in middle school, like, thinking back, how would that have felt to you? Freeing, blocking you, like, limiting, just how would that have been?
I don't think so. I got a phone going into 6th grade, and I got my phone. I didn't ask for it. I got it because I had to walk home from school, and my parents wanted to be able to communicate with me on where I was. And during 6th grade, though, I would keep my phone locked in my locker. I wouldn't be bringing it to class or anything. And in middle school, it was much stricter, honestly, with the cell phones. If you had it out in class, it was getting taken from you. There was no question about it. Whereas in high school, it's very loose restrictions. I honestly don't think that having a cell phone would have made that much of a difference. I definitely felt left out not having social media at a young age when all of my friends did. And my parents were telling me it's really not your age group, you shouldn't have it. And they were right. I see, like, young kids now on social media, and I'm like, oh, I cannot imagine if I had it at that age, like, the kind of stuff I would be posting. So I think that looking back, social media was, like, my main problem. I had self-control over my phone, but the social media piece is what made me feel left out.
Yeah, well, I agree with her. And also something that we talk about it sometimes, is about how when adults are, like, when you're an adult, you're able to buy, like, alcohol. So why can that be a thing for a phone? Like, when you turn 18, go and grab a phone. But if you're not 18, you can't buy one. Like, I feel like that's a really good, like, idea. Like, we were talking about it. That should be, like, really good.
Can I ask what, in your experiences, would have been different without the cell phones, if that was the case? What do you
I
think?
would have been more, really, like, more social. Like, even as of right now, I'm not really comfortable on going, like, outside. Like, I like to stay home. Like, I like to just be in my room, like, and just watch my iPad or be in my iPad.
I'm
my
very
phone.
social.
Yeah, she is.
I talk to everyone. I can talk to everyone. Like, I don't get embarrassed or anything. So in middle school, yeah, I was very social. I had social media. I was always on it. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and now, like, I think it was junior year going into senior year, I kind of got off social media, and I didn't have Instagram or Snapchat for like a good 5 months. I would just watch TikTok, but, like, I had an account that I would just like follow her or my mom and like close friends, and that's just how I've been since. I just gotten off social media.
You just got off?
Yeah.
Was there a reason that prompted that for you?
I don't really, honestly, I think it was more of a, like, something for me to feel better about myself, to feel better, not my business being out there.
Did it work?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, if I could just say something about specifically the policy of cell phone policies in middle schools. The city youth services runs a program on Monday nights called Peer Connection. And we actually just banned cell phones from the entire event. And it is a fight every time. But I will say, beforehand, when we didn't have them banned, if they were distracted, they would just go in their pocket, take out their phone. But now that they don't have their phones, they are finding so many more creative ways to fill their time. So while not having a phone in middle school would probably be the best case scenario, we probably have to come up with something for kids who already have phones.
And I think the two observations that you made on, we're talking about the behaviors that sort of are not the most desirable that spread socially, but the cell phone usage is itself a behavior that spreads socially. And so when you're in middle school and you feel the pressure from your peers to do it, it's almost too late. You're sort of in this what's called a collective action trap, where everybody is around you sort of has it. And it's almost like the opposite of herd immunity. And so, like, to counter that, you almost have to start earlier. And that's where, as somebody with kids who are in elementary school, I'd like to see that brought back a lot on how you bring more parents along with you. So there's not that trap at the time where it's in elementary school where all the kids are saying, hey, are you on it? You're on it. And then you feel left out, because we don't want people to feel it. We want people to sort of have that community around them where they're, reinforcing these good behaviors. And so I love that observation that you two made.
No, that's incredible. And I think just one more thing that I heard about this conversation was in the concept of prevention and education and awareness. I think learning about how our body reacts to these stressors, right? What are the red flags? Like when I'm strolling on this for 3 hours, I get a headache and I'm anxious and I'm aggravated and I'm frustrated. It's like, all right, I gotta put this down. So it's also learning about our bodies and about how our bodies are responding to all of this. So really thank you for all of you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add to what we've been talking about?
One more
Please,
question for the
absolutely.
kids. Did when you guys got your cell phones, did anyone talk to you about how to use them, expectations of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom used to check my phone when I first got it, so we would me and her we lived together. So when I remember when I got my phone, the first thing I did was get to social media, and every week or 2 weeks or so, my mom would check our phones, and from there we kind of she trusted us, and so ever since she's checked, and then she's gotten more trustful, and now she's okay, well, I trust you, I know you're not gonna do anything. So
I love it. So it really sounds like conversations with parents at home and whoever's in the household of trust and understanding the risk. And as you said, it's online forever, and understanding that. So that's beautiful to hear and know. And so
Could I just make one more comment?
Absolutely.
So about the digital footprint, so one of my roles within HR, I see all of the sort of risks coming in, and I get sort of notifications from our cybersecurity team, and the risks that are coming in from a cyber standpoint, like now that chatbots are there, the social engineering, trying to get your information and use the information that you have externally to get more information about you, complete the puzzle to then either get your credits, open up, essentially steal your identity or get a line of credit or whatever. That is so real, and the scams are really next level. And so that's accelerating, and there's all of these stats that we're seeing to prove that. And so it's just important that when all of these things that people use on their phones where they're free, there's a saying in product where if you're not paying for it, you are the product. And so every time you use it, it generates that digital footprint, and it really is used against you in a lot of ways. So I think that just sort of the security underpinning is also really important to think about.
And the dangers that children could also be under when grooming happens on the internet as well, just to add to that.
Well, that was an incredible, all of you have different perspectives, different expertises in this area. So thank you so much. I'm gonna share with our folks listening to us online. If you have any questions for our panelists, hopefully we've answered many of those that you had already. Thank you for those who already submitted your questions. So while you guys are thinking and writing your questions online, I'm gonna throw it out to the audience here that we have here. If there's anyone who has a question for us in the panel, we are happy to answer any questions. One question that we did have from our registration was, what is the current policy and cell phone policy in schools right now? I'm going to answer this, but my friend Ralph, feel free to correct me if I have this incorrect. So from my understanding, K through 5, no phones or put away.
During the day.
Put away during the day, and very similar to middle schoolers, right? They're supposed to be in their lockers, put away, to really prevent all the distractions and things like that. And so now when it comes into high school, we actually heard some of the examples of what teachers are doing. And when it comes to high school students, teachers have the availability to implement their own practices within their classroom and the classroom settings.
And we do this through what we call our bring your own device policy. So there's procedures that are put within there, and cell phones are included within that. And obviously that is one of the policies that we're now looking to upgrade and look at replacing with the new cell phone policy.
Wonderful, wonderful. So my friend, do we have any questions online?
So
You had a question about AI in the registration, right?
I do, yeah, that was my next one. You're getting
Okay.
ahead of me there, okay?
I want to hear some of the
Yeah.
answers to that one.
So one of the questions was, and this will be our last one, and how is AI being used in school right now? How are teachers using it? And I know you gave us a little bit of information on that, but how are students, are they using AI within their programs, Chromebooks and things like that? And I'd love to hear from students, anybody, to give us any insight on that.
Students are definitely using AI.
AI.
All students know how to use AI to cheat on homework or anything like that. It's very easy. All students know how to do it. It's about teaching them the difference between using it for cheating and using it to help their assignments. So I had one teacher who actually encouraged me to use ChatGPT to edit my essay for his class because it's going to be quicker than any other editing. And the only problem was my grammar. So that's a very simple way to use it, or just I had another teacher who had me use it to come up with speech ideas for my public speaking class. So it's beneficial to use for like editing an essay grammatically or coming up with ideas for an essay. You can even have it like outline it for you and then you put your own words in. So it's about teaching them how to use it appropriately in the classroom.
Yeah, please.
To speak from the perspective of a digital coach, I'm actually providing training to some of the teachers around how to use AI for some of their clerical tasks around grading and providing feedback to students. However, there also is a policy in our academic integrity policy at CGS that includes a clause for AI in terms of plagiarism and academic dishonesty, not citing AI or using AI on an assignment without informing the teacher or without citing that AI was used on an assignment. We are making it very clear to students that you cannot just plug in the question into a chatbot and get that response and spit it out. The teachers are also very on top of noticing when like a student's voice seems different in a response that they've given to say, okay, maybe this semicolon shouldn't be here or this em dash shouldn't be here. So this might be an AI generated response. I think some of our history teachers are actually focusing in on how to create AI resistant assignments. So assignments that if AI was used, you can't really answer the assignment correctly, or teaching students how to identify when AI is incorrect or how to find their own sources, or to use AI to research a topic and then using their classroom textbook, fact checking the AI to notice, okay, AI actually is incorrect more often than not, or more often than not in this particular area because it doesn't have the amount of information that it needs and teaching them like, what do the bots look like? How do they actually interact? How do they use the data? How do they collect data? What does that look like? I think a lot of that educational piece kind of deters students. A lot of students are turned off from using AI after that because they're like, if it's not reliable and I'll get caught, it kind of is more work than it's work.
I love that.
Yep. Nick, go ahead.
Oh, I have a perspective on this because I know, there's, we sort of go through a lot of this in the professional setting too, on what we use it for, how we use it, how we represent it, et cetera. I could speak a ton on this topic, but there was a couple things that you said on, like, one of the things we're always trying to do is think about what's going to change next and how we as humans sort of adopt to some of this thing. And I sort of go back to my experience in college. I don't know if anybody had to like sort of defend a dissertation or a paper that they wrote. If you have to go up and sort of represent a paper and you get asked questions about it, it becomes very clear on whether or not you wrote that or not.
Or
And
plagiarism.
so there's a theme of what we're talking about tonight, where there's things that are being brought forward. There's middle school problems that are happening in elementary school. There's all these things that are sort of, this whole timeline is shifting. And I could see that, when we have this new technology that makes plagiarism or misrepresentation potentially an issue, it might slide some of that scale too, where, how do you test that? Well, you ask people questions, you make them defend their work, you try to get them to cite it, and that becomes more clear. And so maybe there's, this sort of college experience brought forward on being able to present and represent your work. And so I think that for every risk, there's also another side of it that, to use AI really effectively, I tell people, with the prompts and really engineering the prompts, you really have to, like, I kind of view it as, you're almost a manager that's trying to communicate to a college intern or a high school intern. You have to be very clear about your task, very specific about what you want. And if you give a bad instruction, it becomes very clear on how bad the output is. And so there's all of these skills that can come from this that sort of look different. And so whether or not it's management, whether or not it's defending a paper, like there's good skills that come out of it that could be replaced by some of the things that we think might be lost from it.
Absolutely. And we don't want to get to college and plagiarize and get busted for that either. So just letting you guys all know, right?
I just have to share that I was on a call yesterday with a friend who's a college professor at, I think it's WestCon, and one of the colleges and he was literally proctoring an exam right before he got on the call, and he's waving a blue book at us and going, we're back to doing all the work, paper and pen, and they take a writing sample, like no computers, writing sample at the beginning of the semester, so you know how the kids write in their own words, and then you compare everything that's turned in.
You could do that. And I think that there's also something for, if we think about the things that we want to teach people, I think there is going to be, AI is not going to be gone. And so we have to effectively learn how to work with it. And so I could see it being useful on having something like a prompt engineering, course in high school or something like that, where you teach people how to use it effectively rather than sort of villainize it, and it'll teach people a new skill set. And there's lots of different courses online or that sort of do that. And so that could be something really interesting and fun.
That's very valid, incredible. And I actually wanted to just give another shout out to the student council group, because when we did this data collection process, there was a couple students that really said we have to give our teachers and our administrators some grace, because we're all learning how to deal with this too. Clearly, I'm a paper girl myself, and so we're all learning and having some challenges. And so with that being said, thank you all so much for being here, especially to our students, our parents. Thank you for representing, for being with us. Thank you for the district for inviting us to be a part of this. We are so excited to be here tonight. I'm going to wrap up with another invitation. On Tuesday, March 25th, Norwalk NACTS is hosting their quarterly convening, in which our district, Norwalk Public Schools, will be joining us as well to talk about some data. How do we learn about data? How do we talk about data? And really to come get some more information on that. So again, thank you to you guys, and really a special part of our partnership in this community, and really looking forward to continuing the hard work for the betterment of our young people and our community. So good night to you all, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Interesting.
No, I didn't.